What's up, everybody? It's Kellen here from Start Your Systems, and welcome to another MX Simulator official track gameplay. I know, I'm sorry, I missed last week. I missed you guys so much talking about the race at Atlanta. Did not do a sim real-life gameplay, but I'm back this week. I'm doing it. We're going after it today, and we are playing Daytona, which you will see. There are a couple lines already developed on this track. I just did a little bit of pre-sessioning, and the way that a road works in this game, as long as you just load into the same track and you aren't going into multiplayer or anything, it keeps you a road. So you'll see some of those lines, but I have a road turned on, as I have mentioned, and we're going to try to get through Daytona today. It's a pretty tough track, gnarly track. Lots of long straightaways, lots of kind of mischievous place, little rollers and bumps and things that catch you out. There's some big lines to do, and I will try to hit those occasionally, but for the most part I'm also going to try to keep it pretty subtle so I can look like I'm actually sort of playing this game. Yeah, there's already a rut developed in that corner and my front end went over the edge of it. I just Adam seeing Cerullo myself like he did at Houston. That was a little less than fun. Yeah, but like I said, tricky track. There's moguls, there's carrot jumps as per usual, there's the gator pits that Daytona is usually pretty famous for, and there's wall jumps that if you get them just right, it's possible not to do that, but to do the little, I call it the stew hop, where if you remember, I think he first did it, he did it one time when he was on a Cowie a couple seasons into his 450 career. I want to say it was like maybe 07 was the first year that he was able to do like the wall jump line, and then everybody always refers back to 2011 when he did a really gnarly wall hop like on these type of gator pit walls and absolutely weeded himself 3 laps into the race, or maybe it was 3 or 4 laps into the race, getting his front tire up and over the face of a triple jump. Not a Supercross triple, but like a little, I guess it was like a 353 triple, went over the bars hard, and that might have been the closest to being concussed I've ever seen someone, that the Asterix crew could care less about that, and they more or less just wanted to get him on the bike. It was a very weird scenario. Anyway, talking about Daytona this weekend a little bit, and real life stuff. If you guys want to hear my thoughts on Atlanta, you can go ahead and watch my Monster Energy Supercross Daytona gameplay, review Atlanta and preview a little bit of Daytona there. This is going to be mostly a preview of Daytona, just because I don't want to kind of repeat myself, but obviously, you know, there's the whole drama with Faulkner and Osborne, which I think is going to carry over into this week, and whichever side of the spectrum you fall on there, at least we can agree that it's going to create an epic battle between those two this weekend. Hopefully they end up on the same stretch of racetrack. In the 250 class, this is a race that I feel Jeremy Martin can shine at. You know, he finished second on a 450 here last year. He led a lot of the race, and he's won the Daytona Supercross before on a 250. And he finally, it looks like he got his mojo back like a little bit at Atlanta. It wasn't great, except for that last main event. He finally kind of put the pieces together and took the victory in the last main event. So helped my fantasy team out because I picked J Martin fantasy last week, but or did I pick J Mart? Maybe. I swear I picked J Mart last week, but I know that I have picked him this week in fantasy too. I don't know. I'm gonna have to go back and take a look at that. Maybe I picked Hampshire. Although no, I picked Hampshire to lead. I don't know. Either way, J Mart looked like he came around a little bit that last main event. Kind of came out of his shell a little bit. He wasn't the fastest guy on the track. There was more kind of chaos going on behind him, but he was able to hold off Colt Nichols, who was putting on a good ride there as well. Man, why do I keep crashing? This is embarrassing. All right, let's just try to put laps together here. But yeah, I think J-Mart can, honestly, I think he has the potential to win this weekend. We know his outdoor skills, 2-time national champion. I think it's a little tough to bet against Faulkner or Osborne right now just because they've been so good. Oh my God. riding terrible. But Faulkner and Osborne have looked almost like the class of the field, except maybe Ferrandis. Except for now that, we're not going to have Ferrandis out there. Potentially broken jaw from his crash in Atlanta, so that sucks. But yeah, I think Faulkner and Osborne are otherwise kind of the class of the field right now. And so it's a little tough to bet against them, but I will and say that I think Martin's going to win this weekend. Is he going to do it easily? No, I think that those guys will give him a fight, but I'd like to believe that Martin still has a little bit of his Supercross prowess in him, and if it's going to shine through anywhere, it's going to be Daytona, in my opinion. So would like to see Martin have a strong showing, but obviously the real storyline is this 250 class drama, which I would just love to see anything interesting happen there, them get together and see what happens. Talked a little bit about in the review show thing I did in Monster Energy Supercross, the game, that I think Osborne's going to retaliate, to be honest with you. And I really wonder what's going to happen, because we know retaliation in the eyes of the FIM, more or less John Gallagher, is frowned upon. Chad Reed retaliated on Trey Canard and got the black flag, so we know that, that's not necessarily something that they're going to be too happy about. And I'd be curious to see what happens if his retaliation is like really aggressive. Like if it's a gnarly takeout, if the AMA is going to keep with what they've been doing before, it could even be black flaggable, because they're all for people just full-blown sending it in and T-boning and all this stuff. Like Mike Alessi on Brock Tickle in 2014, they didn't even black flag him, they just gave him a worse gate pick. But Chad Reed retaliates on Trey Canard, got to give him the black flag, which, whether you agree with that or not, it sets a precedence of anytime someone retaliates in the future, you should do the same thing. You have to give them the black flag. I think if Osborne goes for the kill, it's a pretty clear day retaliation effort, and I'm not necessarily saying Faulkner isn't out of the woods for a quote-unquote retaliation either, because he wasn't cross-jumping him on purpose in that instance. But Faulkner has one that he could give back to Osborne anyway, because Osborne took him out at the first round of the year, and then we've seen Faulkner throw it in pretty deep on Osborne, particularly at Tampa a few times. So I really think that both of them are kind of at each other's throats at this point, and there's only 2 points between them in the championship. Osborne's still going to be the championship leader going into this round, but it could be very entertaining. Like, grab your popcorn bowls, because this is going to be a wild night of racing in the 250 class. I'll come back to some of the other 250 guys I want to hit on in a second, but talking 450s, just want to clear the air. I briefly spoke about in my recap video that Blake Baggett I thought was maybe a little bit more hurt than initially thought, but it sounds like he's going to be good to go for this weekend. At what capacity, I'm not really too sure. There hasn't been any clear indication other than that he is racing this weekend, so that leads me to believe that he's healthy enough. But yeah, it was that wrist that he injured at Atlanta that has been giving him problems in the past few years, so was a little bit of a uh-oh scenario that might get that wrist re-injured. But sounds like he's good to go, so hopefully he is really good to go, because I think on a good night for him, he could win this race. Like, this is a really good track for him. He got his first podium here in the 450 class, and everybody knows he's more or less an outdoors guy. So with the speed he's been carrying and with the kind of fluctuation that Tomac's had, you never know. Like, it really could have been Baggett's night if he came in 100% healthy. Because he's not 100%, I don't see him winning. I really have my money on Tomac this weekend, because Tomac's won the last 2 years in this event. He's the defending outdoor champion. I think we'd read a little bit too much into Daytona and the outdoors and all that, because it's really not an outdoor track. Yes, it's a little bit more rough, and they have to, probably soften up their suspension a bit, but it's still pretty supercrossy. It's pretty jumpy, and on my right side of the screen right here, there's even a whoop section, so they can't soften it up too much, or else they won't be able to hit the whoops properly. So because of that, it's not necessarily going to be easy for Tomac, but I still think he wins this weekend. Behind him, it could be anybody. Last year, I believe it was Marvin who finished second. Or no, Marvin who finished third, because J-Mart finished second. And then Dungey, we saw make that last lap pass to get Seeley on for fourth. So none of the other guys that are really in the championship hunt except Marvin and Eli had really good Daytona success before, so this could be another problem area for Anderson. I believe he is in kind of championship mode already a little bit, so I think he's going to kind of take what's given to him, and if what's given to him is a fifth this weekend, then he'll take it and be happy with it. If he gets a good start, I'm not of the opinion that Anderson can't win Daytona, but we've seen in the past that he hasn't been necessarily the best rider at Daytona, so if history repeats, it could be a bit of a struggle for Anderson this weekend, but I don't think that means he for sure is going to be bad this weekend. I think that practice will tell the story. If he feels comfortable and fast, then he'll go to the top of the sheets like he has been going this year, and if he gets a good start, I think that he can battle for the win. It's just like any other round this year for him, so we'll see with Anderson. I do think it's going to be Tomac and Moseman 1-2 though, regardless. They just have the upper hand on tracks like these, a little bit more rutted, a little bit more technical. Moseman is fantastic at saving energy on tracks like these because he takes kind of unorthodox lines that not everybody else is taking, and they generally end up being smoother. So he's pretty good at conserving energy, and that's going to be good because last year it was not a Feld Entertainment event, the Daytona Supercross by Honda. This year, I don't think it's a Feld Entertainment event again this year. However, it is not the Daytona Supercross by Honda. It's the Daytona Supercross by Monster, and it's slowly kind of turning into a full-blown Feld event. But where I'm going with this is last year, the Daytona Supercross by Honda kind of threw a little bit of a curveball for these guys because they had been riding 20-minute plus one-lap main events all year, what they had gotten used to a little bit, and they ran with the old format last year, so it was the Daytona Supercross with 20 laps instead of 20 minutes. This year, they're going back to 20 minutes. And as you can tell by these lap times, which to be honest aren't great, but this one's about to be a little bit better, it's going to be a shorter main event because of that. 20 laps was a long main event last year. It lasted, I think, 26 minutes by the end of it. And obviously that's a lot longer than what it will be this weekend because it'll go 20 minutes plus one lap. And so like max, let's just say the lap times are a minute 30. If he crosses at 19 minutes and 59 seconds, that's an extra 3 minutes added on. So the max it could go is 23 minutes, which would be shorter than last year anyway. So it's obviously going to be a shorter race this weekend, but I don't know how much that really plays into it because it's still a pretty physically taxing race. I think most of the time by the midpoint of the race, we see people get a little bit more tired for these races anyway. They're used to training for, 25-minute motos on a Supercross track at the, for Supercross season. They do 25 plus ones in training. So it's going to be a long, gritty race, challenging, different suspension that they haven't used most of the year. Like I said, it is more Supercrossy than Daytona's ever been because, the jumps are pretty Supercrossy, but I still think that guys are going to have a little bit of a problem with that, getting their suspension dialed in and stuff. So I got Tomac, I got Moseman. I think Anderson maybe could finish third. I think that's a pretty good spot to put him in this weekend. We'll have to see how Baggett does, but there's not really anybody else like in that mix I would consider to be better than those four were or are now. Man, I almost got the wall. So I'd say it's those four, pretty clear. Webb is, he's starting to get into the mix. He's getting his groove a little bit, but I just don't think he's quite there yet. At least in terms of, longevity of the same pace. Like, pace-wise, I think he's good. He had a pretty good weekend at Atlanta, but Atlanta's practically a home race for him. I mean, he grew up in North Carolina, but, he always has done well in Atlanta, so I just think that was a little bit more of just a good comfort feel for him. We'll see how he is at Daytona and see if that comfort carries on. But I would say it's those 4 clearing away at the front. And yeah, that's 450 class. 250 class, what more can I talk about there? Like we said, it sucks that we lost Ferrandis. Marty has his problem still going on. He rode really good in Atlanta, but he crashed and then lost a big chunk of points there. So, I mean, he's really out of the championship at this point, but it is still a pretty close championship amongst, you know, like Hampshire is still pretty close. Jordan Smith, I believe, is 3rd in the championship. He's 11 or 12 back of Osborne, I should say. So there's guys that are still pretty close, and this is only the 4th round of the 10-round series, so there's a lot of time left to make up some of those points that those guys need to make up championship-wise. Almost got it. Front flip out of it. Darn. I was a little disappointed in Hampshire this past weekend. His starts have been on point this season, except for at Atlanta, and I picked him as a first lap leader in my PulpMX Fantasy League, and then he absolutely let me down. So I was a little bit disappointed, just because I thought he would get a good start and maybe have an opportunity to win like the first main event at Atlanta, because he's pretty good at like getting a start and getting away, and then he'll kind of fade back into those guys a little bit. But you know, if he had the same main event that he had at Arlington, he would have won one of the 2 main events, the first 2 main events in Atlanta, based on the time of those. So sucked a little bit that he wasn't necessarily on the pace, but I think Daytona is going to be a different story. He's a Florida guy. He won that GP at Jacksonville last year. He likes the sand. I think he's, you know, been pretty good at Daytona in the past as well. So I could see Hampshire also getting into the mix this weekend, maybe a little bit more than he has this season already. Potentially landing on the podium for sure, but maybe even battling it out front if he gets a start again, giving those guys fits to try to hang on to the lead for as long as he can. I think Osborne and Faulkner are still a touch quicker than him, but I don't think that means he can't hold them off for a good while. He's done it before, where he's got a good start and held off some fast guys, and I think that he could do it again if he needs to, and if he wants to as well, because I'm sure he'll want to do a good showing in front of his hometown crowd. Who else can I talk about in the 250 class? We covered Marty a little bit. Colt Nichols had a pretty good ride at Atlanta last weekend. We lost his teammate Ferrandis for the season, but Nichols is still within striking distance, and I keep crashing. I apologize for how terrible this gameplay is. But Nichols is within striking distance in this series. He had a good last main event, kind of made up for a couple mishaps in the first couple mains, but last main event was good. I could see him being, get a good ride this weekend, maybe top 5. Who else can I talk about? Michael Moseman made his debut for Rockstar Husky at Atlanta last weekend, and he was really good outdoors, and he gets good starts too, so it's not out of the realm that he could also get a good start this week and maybe like throw a wrench into the game a little bit by leading some laps and making things interesting. Like I said, was good outdoors. He's generally speaking pretty fast and close to the pace with those guys. Don't think he's got the whole 15+1 in him just yet, just because he just came back from injury, and I think training has been down a little bit for him, but he'll get there. It's good to see him make his debut. We got Dakotas and Peters have had kind of off weeks the past few weeks. They'll be wanting to rebound. And yeah, should be a fun 250 race. Anything else I could talk about in the 450 class? About Pike's crash at Atlanta was gnarly. He's going to try to make amends this weekend. I think he finished 7th overall at Atlanta, despite literally eating soil from 35 feet in the air and 70 feet away. So dude's made of concrete, and was good to see him get up from that crash, but hopefully he has a good weekend this weekend. He's done pretty well at Daytona in the past. I always more or less thought of Pike as an outdoor guy until the last couple of years. Like, thinking back to, if you can go back to the 2013 Daytona Supercross, I think it was, maybe it was it's 2013, and Pike just barely made the main event out of the LCQ, battling with Bobby Canary. And then there's that famous infamous video of him kicking his bike. I mean, that's 5 years ago now, but you know, he's gone from being a borderline main event guy to finishes near the top 5 every week, and he's had a great turnaround in his career. But what I'm more or less pointing out with that is that he was a borderline main event guy in Supercross back then, but outdoors he was a different story. He was privateering it up, finishing inside of the top 10. He did like a whole year for Motorsport Suzuki, and I think he finished 6th outdoors or something like that. He filled in on RCH one year, and I believe finished 5th outdoors. So like, he's had much better outdoor seasons than Supercross seasons throughout his career. So again, if we're going with this theme of Daytona being an outdoor style track, and excuse me, guys that have outdoor skills maybe doing really well here, I think Pike kind of fits that bill a little bit, especially with the good season he's been having, and so long as he's not too banged up from that crash, I think he could have a good ride. And he's really dealing with a fairly depleted field, you know, now that, you know, Seeley, Barsha, Roxon, all these guys going out. He really could creep up there and maybe land on the podium before the season's out. What I really am kind of waiting for, and I think everybody else is waiting for, is Brock Tickle to have, I guess you'd call it like his breakout ride. Like, there was so much speculation about going to Baker's Factory, going to KTM. He's going to hit that next step in his career, but it just hasn't happened. He had a horrible weekend in Atlanta. He was down on the first lap of every main event. And he needs to, in my opinion, like, start turning it around soon. Like, even if he has a really good outdoor season following this Supercross season, I don't know if KTM is going to want to re-sign him, because he hasn't really panned out to be that second guy that I think they hoped they would get. I think they were hoping that, worst case scenario, he's like just, you know, right around 8th or 9th most of the time, gets into the top 5 occasionally, but it's barely been even that good. And I think they were really hoping he would turn into a top 5 guy, maybe even a race winner at some point during the season. And I kind of agreed with that, because Tickle has shown speed in the past. When he was on RCH Suzuki last year, he qualified 3rd at Toronto, or yeah, I think it's 3rd. Looked really fast. No, he finished 3rd at Toronto, I should say, on the Suzuki, and he qualified 1st or near the front. So definitely looking for Tickle to turn it around as the season heads a little bit deeper. Yeah, I think that's pretty well covered. Daytona Supercross by Monster Energy this year. The first time it's not Daytona Supercross by Honda in 30 years, I think it's been Daytona Supercross by Honda, so it's kind of a changing of the guard, and should be a good one. I always like watching Daytona. It's always an entertaining race to watch, and it's live again this week, finally, right? No more UFC BS. Get to watch Supercross live, and I hope you guys enjoy watching it. Go ahead and try out this track too, Daytona in MX Simulator. Definitely worth a play. I know I'm not making it look very good, but that's really just because as the years gone by, my sim skills have gotten more and more depleted. Playing Monster Energy Supercross, the game, has all but ruined me at this point. No, I'm kidding. I'm just losing my talent as time goes on, it seems. But definitely try this track out. It's fun. I have a road on 20s, so if you want to tone it down and not have it be as gnarly, you certainly can do that. Yeah, Daytona Supercross. Hope you guys enjoyed watching this weekend, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Download the track in the description below, and I hope to see you guys in any of our future videos on the channel. But for Kellen here on Start Your Systems, I'll see you guys next time. I'm out. Later.